Hi, everybody. Welcome to a live edition of the CrossFit Games Update Show. I'm Sean Woodland with Roy McKernan and Annie Sakamoto, and you may notice that we are not in our normal digs. That is because the studio is currently undergoing a remodel, and we will be able to unveil that to you as we get closer to regionals. So for now, we are in the HQ gym, but don't worry, we Gucci.
Yeah,
Gucci. It's going to be Louis Vuitton over there.
There you go, what the kids say. But today we're here to talk about the Age Group Online Qualifier. Those workouts will get announced tomorrow. We'll have a little bit more on that in a little bit later in the show. But first off, this is a great test for the age group athletes. You know, the Open is one thing, and this is another thing, and it really does take things up a notch here.
This is our regionals, basically, for the teens and the masters and those of us that are trying to get to the games. This is our regionals. This is a really fun weekend. We don't have the time to kind of practice and think about the workouts that you do for regionals, and I actually personally like that. But you do have to strategize what order you're going to do these workouts in. So I love the age group qualifiers.
I'm with you. I think that it's an exciting time of year, right? You had the Open, everybody had this singular focus on one thing. We had a little bit of a doldrums, so it gets to refocus on some competition. And I'm going to get involved even though I didn't qualify. Like, I'm going to do the workouts. Why not?
Good, yeah.
See what it's all about.
Never a bad idea to test yourself to see where you stand up. Here's what's on tap for today. We're going to take a look at the history of the Age Group Online Qualifier, give you some context with that. Tommy Marquez will be here to go inside the leaderboard. We'll take a look at the top stories going into the online qualifier in the teens and the masters, and then we will take a closer look at some Masters champions who are going for a three-peat, and then talk about longevity in the Masters competition as well. This is now the 5th year that we have done the Age Group Online Qualifier. It started in 2014, and for the first 3 years, it was just about the Masters, the top 200 in the 10 divisions, 4 workouts, plus your Open overall finish added together, and then the top 20 advance to the CrossFit Games. Last year, we made a change. We added the 35 to 39-year-old division, and we started to include the teens as well. And then in 2018, the format stays the same. The Masters, and you said this, have always wanted regionals. And when you step back and you think about what a logistic undertaking that would be, I mean, you're talking venues and staff and the whole 9 yards that we need to do for yet another, possibly 3 weekends. So that wasn't going to happen, but we get the online qualifier, and I think this is honestly the next best thing, and it's done a great job.
Totally. The Open, we all get to play, we all get to have fun, but obviously when we're talking about going to the games, there needs to be some distinction between, you know, just those first 5 workouts and really those that deserve to be at the games. So I think that is exactly what the online qualifier does. Notoriously, it's higher skill, heavier weight. It's 4 workouts in a weekend. There's a lot more strategy to it. So I think it does its job perfectly.
I think not just that. I don't think it's the next best thing, Sean. I think it's the best thing for where the Masters competition is at this point in its growth. Now, the Open was created to serve the massive growth of the community in the Open who wanted to participate. The Masters is growing rapidly, but I still think at this point, trying to, like you said, trying to serve all those facilities would basically become an events company just trying to put it on, as opposed to trying to find the fittest people on earth. So I think in this sense, you can still cast the widest net and find the actual fittest 35 to 39-year-old, 40 to 45-year-old, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this is the best way for this point in the competition to test.
I want to say hi to John, who's watching us on deployment. Thanks for joining
John,
us here.
What's up, man?
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you being here. And the other thing that is talked about a lot with this is that your overall Open standing goes with you into the Masters Age Group Online Qualifier. And you can kind of draw some parallels to the actual regional competition here as well, right?
Exactly. In regionals, you are going to be placed in your heats by how you've done in the Open. So it really serves you well to not just qualify for regionals, but to actually do really well to be in those better heats, right, with the better athletes. Same thing here. It means that the Open has a real significance. It's not just a way to qualify. It carries some weight, and I like that.
Yeah, there are obviously some people who have vehement opposition to that rule, and you know who they usually are? I find that those are the people who didn't do that well in the Open, and I hate to say that. There are some legitimate conversations that could be had, but I think it's perfectly appropriate, and when you look at the average of the people who do really well once they get to the games, they also did well in the Open, and they did well in the online qualifier, so I think it's perfectly appropriate. You got to perform in both events in order to perform in the games.
It is an overall test of fitness.
Tommy Marquez is here, and he's going to go inside the leaderboard presented by Bear Complex and take a closer look at some of the more interesting numbers as they pertain to the Age Group Online Qualifier.
Thanks, Sean. The Masters competition has evolved quite a bit over the years, but, you know, we've added divisions, we've added stages of competition, but the online qualifier, at least in format, has stayed the same. 5 scored events, one of which being your open placement. And so really, how important is performance in the open and the online qualifier for the rest of the season? Well, for the Masters women, if you're one of the athletes that, say, has some hopes of bringing home some hardware at the games, the podium finishers have typically performed quite well in both the open and qualifier. These are the average finishes in the open and qualifier of eventual women podium athletes at the games. Third place at the games has averaged a 7th place during the open and qualifier, while the CrossFit Games champions have averaged a 3rd place, meaning that, historically speaking, you can circle the top 7 or so athletes in the qualifier as your pool of podium contenders, and the top 3 as your pool for potential winners. For the Masters men, there are some differences, primarily in the spread between the open finish and qualifier finish for 3rd place, as you can see down below. For all 3 podium spots, the average finish in the qualifier is worse than on the women's side. And given that the average open finish is also worse across the board, it points to being just a little bit more parity at the top for the Masters men as far as these 2 stages of the competition is concerned. Now, if maybe the podium isn't really in your scope and you're just worried about even making the games, probably because you're outside of the top 20 or even top 50 after the open, don't panic. There's definitely still some hope for you guys to make it to the CrossFit Games. Here's the definitive list of the biggest comebacks in the history of the qualifier. Each one of these athletes rallied from 69th place or lower to get an invite to the Games. Carl Dial in 2014 even made the podium once he got through the qualifier to the Games in Carson. Now, Tiago Lopez holds the record, though, coming back from 74th place in the open, and the comeback was a little bit more manageable than you might have thought. His average finish in those 4 workouts last year was 24th, so there's even a potential for some bigger comebacks, even as early as this year, potentially. Now, a few athletes who probably aren't going to be worried about a big comeback are some of the athletes that you'll see in just a second that are on the top of our all-time record list as far as event wins go. And the very tip-top winner so far is Amanda Allen with 5. You know, she's still in the running. She competed in the Open this year. You get right behind her, there's 4 athletes, though, that could catch her as soon as this year. They're tied with 4 event wins across the history. Patty Faya, who won the Open in the 60-plus division, and our very own Wild Bill Grundler, who's won an event each of the last 3 years in the 45 to 49 division. So regardless of maybe you're a podium contender just trying to make the games, or one of the all-time bests, there are a ton of numbers to pay attention to as scores start to roll in across the weekend. Sean?
Thanks a lot, Tommy. So some interesting numbers there. And look, we said it, you got to do well in the open to give yourself a good chance here in the online qualifier. So if you're an athlete who maybe is sitting like 75th right now and you're wondering whether or not you should do the Age Group Online Qualifier, why should you do the Age Group Online Qualifier?
I think you've got 2 different categories here. You've got one who are athletes who have a chance to qualify for the actual CrossFit Games. So they're going to go to the regionals, and they're going to use this as a backup plan. And to them, I would say, why on earth would you not do that?
Right.
The other type of person that we're talking about, yeah, maybe you finished above 75th, but you earned the spot, first of all. So throw your hat in the ring. You never know what you got. And then that's going to give you a nice benchmark for moving forward. You never know what you can do until you try.
Right, and for everybody 75th and up, right, from there or down, whichever way you want to look at it. For that, I can guarantee that all of us on the second week of the Open were like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this for 4 more weeks, you know. But then when it's over, it's like, oh wait, I'm not ready for it to be over. And so we have a ton of people at our gym that even didn't make it in the top 200, and they're still going to do the Age Online Qualifier because it's too fun.
It's another
too
test.
fun not to.
It's a
Exactly.
great, it is a great measuring stick. Let's turn our attention to the teenage athletes. This is now the 4th year that we have had teenagers competing at the CrossFit Games, and we have 3 athletes who are still in the teenager divisions who've competed all 3 years. Taylor Babb, Brooklyn Smith, and Vincent Ramirez, the only 3 athletes who have competed all 3 years as teenagers at the CrossFit Games and who are still eligible to do so here in 2018. Let's look at the 16 to 17-year-old division for the boys. Dallin Pepper and Vincent Ramirez are 2 of the names we hear a lot about. The top 2 in the division from last year are gone. Dallin Pepper is the reigning 14 to 15-year-old champion, so he is now aging up into the 16-year-old division. Vincent Ramirez, though, has 1 year already in that division. So who has the edge now between the 2 of them?
I'm going to go with Ramirez. You know, as opposed to the Masters, where you want to be the newcomer into the age group, quite the opposite for the teens. I think you're a little better off being on the older age end of your group. So I think with his experience and being on that older age and Vincent Ramirez has it.
Let me give you a direct quote from my man Dallin Pepper, who
Okay.
said, "You don't get any points for being older." And so I back him up.
No, you don't. That is a fact. Exactly.
No, this was a toss-up for me. So I reached out to the gentleman who called the action last year. That was Ted Ramey and Jeremy Austin. They both gave Dallin the edge in this one. So I reached out to him personally on Instagram. He said that he's been working a lot and changing. Even though he was strong last year as a 14 to 15-year-old, he knew that in the next division he'd have to be even stronger. So he's been focusing on strength. He's actually been focusing on specific time domains that he wasn't good at last year's games. And for the first time in his young life, he is weighing and measuring food.
Wow.
And he said his intake's gone through the roof. So you can imagine as a parent, this kid's 16 years old. He's probably already eating more than a horse, and now that's gone up. So your poor parents, Dallin. But it's going to be a fun matchup for sure.
Definitely.
The teenage girls in the 16 to 17-year-old division, there's a great matchup there, and it kind of reminds us of what's going on with Cara Saunders now and Tia Claire Toomey down there in Australia. So last year, Haley Adams, who's going to be on a team for regionals, so she may actually make it as a team member for the CrossFit Games, but still eligible to go as a teenager. She beat Kayla Stefano in the Open and the Age Group Online Qualifier last year, but then Stefano got the best of her at the Games. But this year, Stefano has the early lead. So does she now have to worry that maybe Haley Adams repays the favor and Haley Adams gets the best of her at the CrossFit Games?
Wouldn't that be a funny twist of fate, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that she does, although, Kayla qualified legitimately for regionals this year, whereas Haley got the invite due to some other folks that had not chosen to go to the regionals. But now Haley's going to go individual, whereas Kayla is going to compete on a team. Both great sources of experience for both girls. Not that they totally need it, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
See, Heber Cannon has trained his son to actually try and to
We
steal
got
my
free-range
take.
kids around
Yes.
He's trying to steal my take. I think,
He wanted to weigh in on that one.
Thanks, Matt. So what I think is cool about these two women, first of all, is that we've got this amazing rivalry 3 years in the making.
Yeah.
I reached out to both of them as well. The one thing that is different for Kayla this year is that she's actually a full-time student for the first time ever. So she's known for a lot of training volume in the past couple of years. This year, she said she had to cut back. She's not getting that second session. See if that affects her or not. She's also not weightlifting as much, which you'd imagine during training for the CrossFit Games, having to make weights and things like that probably affected her. With Haley, she said that she's actually feeling better than ever, but both of them unanimously said the Age Group Online Qualifier is not our focus. We're actually both looking towards the regionals. Here's the thing, though. Kayla's going on a team. Haley's going individual. That's why I think she has the edge, because she's going to get that experience and she's going to have the individual stuff going into the CrossFit Games.
We always talk about how the teenager division is the future of the sport, and obviously because these kids are going to be aging up and going individuals at some point in their career. So we looked at kids who have competed as teenagers at the CrossFit Games and who are now in the individual category. And what we see are the boys in that category average about a 45th place finish in their region. So right on the cusp there as far as getting to regional competition is concerned. I mean, they still have some work to do, and same thing with the girls, 33rd place. How many years do these kids really need to wait after they get done with the teenager division before we really can see them not only just make the CrossFit Games, but maybe make some noise there?
It depends if you're talking about boys or if you're talking about girls. If you're talking about girls, Haley Adams and Kayla are already in the conversation, right? They're looking for top 10 finishes once they get to the regionals. Boys, much different answer. That physiology meeting maturity has to happen a little bit later on from the looks of things in the competition so far. I'll be looking at a couple of the athletes who are qualified this year to see where they go, but we haven't seen any young men be able to make a splash quite yet. I think maybe they'll hang out on teams before they can actually go individual at the Games.
Although, we could talk about Samuel Quant, who did
Sure.
really well. He made the Games at 20 years old, I believe, in 2016. And look at George Sterner right now.
Sterner's doing great.
Yeah, he's poised to make the Games as well, and he's only 19 years old. So I think actually ladies physically peak a bit later than the gentlemen. I'm thinking that right now it's just the pool of men that the boys are having to compete against is so immensely talented that, and not to say that the females
That's only
aren't.
going up.
Right.
That's only going up.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what some of these
But
teenagers.
yes, Sterner third place in the Open in the North Central, so he would be our first litmus test in terms
Right.
of
Yep.
athletes who came from teenager
Teenager
to
too.
individuals.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Masters divisions now, and we talked about this during the Open, and we looked at the growth of the Open in general and how many people that we had participating now. And it's the same thing with the Masters. Only 14% of the Masters athletes in the Age Group Online Qualifier have CrossFit Games experience. So just like the Open and just like everyone at large, not only are we adding more people to these categories, we are adding more fit people to these categories.
I think that's exactly it. The masters that are coming in, it's not like they just came off the street and started CrossFit for the first time. Yeah, maybe they've only been CrossFitting for 1 or 2 years, but we're talking about athletes that were high-level soccer players or baseball players or football players or whatever it may be. They played high-level athletics for many years of their life, and now CrossFit has given them this venue to continue their athletics endeavors.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those came from when we incorporated the new division of the 35 to 39-year-olds, and then all of a sudden we had these athletes who weren't just former athletes, like you said, in other sports, they were also former CrossFit Games athletes.
Right.
Yeah, we have some Masters athletes who might be competing on a team at regionals. Some are electing to compete as individuals. Josh Bridges comes to mind there. But regardless of your situation, should all eligible Masters be doing the Age Group Online Qualifier, and if so, why?
I say yes. I say, you know, for instance, let's look at Rebecca Voigt last year. She was poised to qualify for her 10th games. She didn't make it, which was just crushed all of us. But she had done the age qualifier, and she made it to the games last year, albeit as a Masters athlete. So to me, that safety net, you know, and look at who they're up against. It's not like it's Rebecca Voigt and a bunch of people that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
It's Kirsten Pedri, it's Anna Tobias, it's Samantha Briggs. I mean, these are the names that are at least in the hat right now.
Yeah.
So.
I would totally agree with you until I saw Josh Bridges' Instagram that said, no, there's no way that I'm doing this. And I got to respect the burn the boats mentality where it's like, hey, look, I don't want that net because then maybe I'm day 3 in a tough position where I need to clinch. And maybe I've got that at the back of my head.
Yep.
If I burn the boats on the beach, I'm going to try and take the island.
Yep, I like it.
Bridges would be in that 35 to 39-year-old division, and I'm sure there are a lot of athletes who are vying for a spot at the games.
Yeah.
We're glad that
They're pumping
he
their
is
fist.
not going to be in there. And there are some athletes that we don't know if they're going to be in there again or not. There's some speculation that maybe Kyle Kasperbauer goes team. Of course, he's the defending champion, so he won't be there. Neil Maddox is aging up. And then on the women's side, same thing with Stephanie Wash. She's aging up. And Joey Kimdon, another woman as well, who won't be in that division. So who now are the favorites for the men and the women in the 35 to 39-year-old division now that those names might not be there?
Well, for the men, I'm going to look at Ben Alderman. So right now, he is registered as team. Assuming his team doesn't make it, I think he's, you know, with his lifting experience, with his competitive experience, I put my money on Ben Alderman.
I've got some good news for you.
Yeah?
I reached out to him. No, maybe not good for Ben,
Who
but
didn't you reach out to?
depending on the fate of his team, he said, if it doesn't work out, I'm not just going to come to the 35 to 39-year-old. I'm going to win the 35 to 39-year-old division. But, you know, this conversation is interesting because there are so many asterisks on this division.
Yep.
Is Anna Tobias' team going to qualify for regions, and
Right.
then would she go on the team, and then would she go individual? And if she doesn't go individual, then would she go 35 to 39?
Right.
So there's a lot of questions, but all those names are in the hat, like you said. And if they get to go to this division, especially for the women, will be stacked.
It's nice that it's all kind of staged out like
Yeah.
this, so really people can make some
Yeah.
decisions, and we can kind of watch the pawns as they're played around the game, right?
That 35 to 39-year-old division is going to be a blast. And now the 40 to 44-year-old division has always been competitive. It is getting even more so for both the men and the women this year. And you just look at the names that are aging up, and we mentioned most of them, Kimdon, Maddox, Wah, all going into that 40 to 44-year-old division. Does Helen Harding need to send a message, or what advantage does she have over Kimdon and Wah, who have not competed in that regional? You got to pretend that you're not going to be competing in this, so you can be objective. So we're going to leave you out of this. But what advantages might she have over these two?
I don't think she has an advantage. You know, had Kimdon and Wah not competed last year in the games, and this was their first year competing, then I'd say she definitely has an edge. But looking at the fact that both Kimdon and Wah competed last year at the games, they did a run, swim, run event. They did, I mean, what can we throw at these ladies at this point that they're not going to do well at? When you look at their results that we've seen over 2 years now, I don't see any holes.
I agree. And you think about Stephanie Waugh, and you maybe question if she would be intimidated coming into that new region. Already, she wins the Open immediately. That's her
Yeah.
first move.
Yeah.
And reached out to her on social media. She said she's feeling better than she ever has. So I think that Helen Harding, and she probably welcomes the challenge, right? She's gonna
definitely.
there's going to be a dogfight in that division.
Exactly.
Look, and there's a chance that both those women could qualify as individuals for the CrossFit Games because both are going to regionals, and Helen Harding was in the mix for quite a while down there in the Pacific Regionals. So
I think it wasn't until the last workout
it was,
when
yeah.
she fell out.
Got knocked
so,
out.
Yeah, she very much stands a chance to qualify.
40 to 44-year-old men, this one's going to be a blast to watch. Now, Sean Ramirez is trying to make a little history here. He's trying to sweep the categories, sweep the 40 to 44-year-old age division. He's won it every time he's been there, so that's 4 straight times. He has the most Masters Games event wins at 13, and he has the most Age Group Online Qualifier overall wins with 3. But this year, he's facing Neil Maddox. This will be the first time that we've seen Ramirez take on a former individual CrossFit Games athlete. What kind of message do you think Sean Ramirez wants to send to Neil Maddox here in the Age Group Online Qualifier?
I think if Sean's smart, he's not going to try to send any kind of message. Sean is going to do Sean, and that's what he has to focus on right now. Yeah, Maddox is a threat. Maddox is a great competitor, but so is Sean. And so what he needs to do is just do his thing, do what he knows to do. His family that comes in like 25 packs with Ramirez shirts, they can make the statement for him. Sean just needs to be a great competitor and keep his eyes on the prize.
Yeah, I think when you think about Neil Maddox, he's such a clutch competitor, and he's going to be at regionals himself, so he's probably focused on that and not Sean Ramirez. He's not thinking about the games yet. He's going to focus on regionals first. I agree that Sean needs to do the same thing because the Age Group Online Qualifier has never really been his jam. He's great when he gets to the CrossFit Games. He had to dig himself out of a hole last year, and he's really good at that kind of stuff. So right now, I think he basically needs to pretend like Neil Maddox doesn't exist,
100%.
do his thing, and just get ready to be his best self once he gets to Madison.
So Sean Ramirez is going for a 5th CrossFit Games championship. There are some other athletes who are going now for their 3rd straight. We already mentioned Helen Harding, but there are 2 others looking to complete a 3-peat. One is Cheryl Brost. She's in the 45 to 49-year-old division, and then David Hippensteel in the 60-plus division. Of those 2 latter on the list, so Cheryl Brost and David Hippensteel, who do you think has the best chance to win number 3?
Man.
Cheryl Brost has, I know.
Brost.
And nothing against David Hippensteel. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's so much fun to watch at the games. But Cheryl Brost, she's posting scores. She was probably top 80 to at least 100 in the West Coast region. And to me, at 46 years old, that is phenomenal. She's posting scores that are competitive with people in the 40 to 44-year-old division. She's just so solid all the way around.
Yeah, and in addition to that, like this may surprise you to hear, but I reached out to her and asked how she was doing. I said, "Aloha, Cheryl, what's up?" And she started writing. She's like, "Hey, yeah, I actually had some issues, like even during the Open up until a couple weeks ago." And she started writing it, and just a list kept coming through, and I had trouble with this, and a little bit hip bursitis, and a little bit of tendonitis, and it kept going. I was like, "Oh my God, how'd you pull this off?" But she put a really positive spin on it, and she said, "I'm good to go now, and just in time for the online qualifier." So you got to give her props. We give so much attention to Sean Ramirez for being dominant. Cheryl Brost is the most dominant Masters athlete for the past 2 years. She had the highest point total that's ever been done and the 2nd lowest point total for any Masters in the online in the Open before. She's just a phenomenal, like the stats she's putting up, it's legendary.
And she's still PRing.
That's the thing that's crazy, and that really speaks to the next thing we're going to talk about, and that's longevity with CrossFit and getting better with age as you continue to employ this training methodology. And there are 2 athletes who really exemplify that. First, on the women's side, Lynn Knappman, who is 58 years old, has competed in every single Masters competition at the CrossFit Games that started in 2010. So she's been to every one. That's 51 total Masters events. She has competed in every single one of them. And then on the men's side, you have Ron Ortiz, who has been to the Masters competition every year since 2011. He's 52 years old. He's also a 2-time champion in 2 different divisions, the 45 to 49-year-old division and the 50 to 54-year-old division, and he has 9 CrossFit Games event wins. What does this say not only about these 2, but the Masters community in general?
Well, we talk about the teenagers being kind of the future of CrossFit and looking to where they're going to go. But really, to me, this is a lot of the future of CrossFit in that it's a new sport as a competitive sport, right? CrossFit as a training methodology has been around for a while, but as a competitive sport, it hasn't been around that long. And to see these athletes still getting better, still able to compete, for those of us that are trying to compete or even just try to have, this is what we have to look forward to, and future looks bright, if you ask me.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, what we say is that the CrossFit Games are a competition not just of athletes, but also of training methodologies. So these people are like living playbooks. If you want to know how you can be the fittest person in the world, the fittest version of yourself, try and do what Matt Fraser or Katrin David daughter do, right? If you want to live well for a longer time, like I want Lynn Knappman's playbook. I want to know exactly what she's doing. I want to know how she recovers, how she sleeps, how she eats, because these people are decades ahead of me, right? So look at anybody who's older than you. If you like what they're doing, you know, they're basically like they're your fitness mentors. So I love what they represent in terms of it used to not be possible. It used to be you get older and you just, you know, you decline, you're going to go down. It's not going to be fun.
And I can say this, you probably can too. I would tune my 22-year-old self up right now. I would just mop the floor with my 22-year-old self.
Not this 2 weeks that we're in right now, but in general, I would.
Exactly. Of course, the big news that everybody wants to know, okay, what are the online qualifying workouts going to be? We will answer that question for you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific time, live here on Facebook. We will unveil the tests for the Age Group Online Qualifier, so you're going to want to join us for that, so you will find out what you're going to have to go through in order to get yourself to the CrossFit Games. You will be here with us. Now, we're not going to tell you beforehand, so we're going to get your genuine reaction from these. Is there anything that you want to see, and then what do you not want to see?
I'm going to start with what I don't want to see, but I know is coming because we didn't see it in the Open, and that's wall balls. We didn't see it in the Open at all. It is by far my nemesis. They floor me. I'm ready for them. We never saw any snatching. We saw some overhead squatting. We saw dumbbell snatching, but we didn't see any barbell snatching, so I'm expecting that to come down the pipes. I'm hoping for some more ring muscle ups, I gotta be honest, and maybe pistols.
I wonder if you get a situation like you got right now if we did wall balls. Like you could just
riser.
stand
That's not a cheat, is it?
stand on a couple plates.
Depends how you frame your video. Yeah, I would not recommend that tactic. No. But again, that's tomorrow. That's 5 p.m. Pacific time here on Facebook. Going to unveil the Age Group Online Qualifier workouts. That's going to do it for us for this evening. For Andy Sakamoto and Roy McKernan, I'm Sean Woodland, and we will see you right back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific time.